Not a single family member came to my wedding. When I called my mom, she laughed and said, "We're in Europe with your sister." My sister chimed in, "What's the point? She'll be divorced soon anyway." I didn't respond. Instead, I sent them a photo, me standing next to a very unexpected guest. Mom kept calling after that. I just smiled, turned off my phone, and walked down the aisle. On my wedding day, no one from my family showed up. I called Mom, and she just laughed. "We're in Europe with your sister," she said. My sister chimed in, "Why bother? She'll be divorced soon anyway." I simply said, "Nothing," and sent a photo of myself with a surprise guest. Mom kept calling, but I smiled, turned off my phone, and walked down the aisle. It was a winter afternoon in Manhattan. Olivia Martin had just finished an editorial meeting and was looking out the office window at the falling snow. The white flakes drifting from the gray sky brought a quiet satisfaction to her heart. She still felt a childlike excitement whenever it snowed. "Olivia, have you read the new manuscript?" "It's quite good," her colleague Sarah interrupted her thoughts. Olivia smiled and went back to her desk. She had been an editor in the fiction department at Harper Publishing, a mid-sized publishing house, for 10 years. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a job she truly loved. "Phone call." Sarah pointed. Olivia instinctively reached for the office phone, but Sarah shook her head. "Your cell." Olivia pulled her mobile phone from her bag and saw Mommy displayed on the screen. She let out a small sigh. "Olivia, why aren't you answering your phone? I've called 3 times." Margaret Martin's voice was, as usual, slightly high-pitched and demanding. "I was working. Is something wrong? You haven't forgotten about dinner tonight, have you?" Olivia closed her eyes. She had completely forgotten. Tonight was the celebration dinner for her stepfather Robert's 60th birthday. Robert was the man who had married her mother when Olivia was 15. He wasn't cold, but they didn't have a particularly close relationship either. "Of course I remember. 7, right?" Olivia lied. 6:30, Amy has already contacted me to say she's arriving. She can manage her schedule properly, it seems. Olivia bit her tongue. Her sister Amy was Margaret's pride and joy and a frequent object of comparison. Amy worked as a manager at an upscale boutique and possessed both a refined appearance and social skills. She was like a younger version of her mother. "I'll do my best," Olivia answered simply. "And Jeremy Williams is coming tonight too, remember him? The son of that real estate company. Do her something decent for once." Olivia rolled her eyes. Her mother was constantly scheming to marry her off to a suitable man. "Got it," she replied and hung up. Sarah was watching her with curious eyes. "Family dinner?" "Yes, my stepfather's birthday. And my mother's usual find-a-husband game." "Who is it this time?" "The son of some real estate tycoon." Olivia shrugged. "But I have Jason." Sarah smiled. "Yes, Jason is a good man." Jason Clark was a colleague who had transferred from the marketing department of an IT company to the publishing industry 2 years ago. They had quietly nurtured a romantic relationship and had just recently started living together. He was intellectual and kind, and like Olivia, preferred a life away from flashiness. When it was time to leave the office, Olivia hurried back to her apartment. Looking through her wardrobe, she considered which outfit might gain her mother's approval. She finally chose a navy blue dress and applied her makeup a little more carefully than usual. She pulled her hair back in a simple style. As she climbed into a taxi, she sent Jason a message, heading to a family dinner. "Not sure if I'll make it back alive. Love you." His reply came quickly, "Have fun. I'll prepare a special breakfast for tomorrow morning. Love you." Olivia smiled. Jason's presence gave her strength to get through the time with her family. When she arrived at Margaret and Robert's luxury apartment in the Upper East Side, where the upper class resided, the party had already begun. When she rang the doorbell, Margaret appeared, wrapped in an expensive dress with perfect makeup. "Finally here." Margaret kissed her daughter's cheek while casting a critical eye over Olivia's outfit. "You should have worn something with more color." As she entered, she saw Amy in a red cocktail dress talking with a young man. When Amy spotted Olivia, she put on a theatrical smile. "Finally here. Everyone's been waiting." Olivia just smiled and said, "Happy birthday, Robert," to her stepfather. He nodded in appreciation and quickly returned to his conversation with other guests. As the evening progressed, Olivia positioned herself in a corner of the room, observing her family's performance. Margaret was the perfect hostess, and Amy was attracting the attention of young men. It was clear what they valued: social status, appearance, and the envious gaze of others. At the dinner table, Margaret seated Olivia next to the real estate prince. He went on and on about his company's success stories. Olivia just nodded and said, "How wonderful," at appropriate moments. "So, Olivia, still working at that little publishing house?" Amy asked in a sarcastic tone. "Yes, we published 3 bestsellers this year," Olivia answered quietly. "But isn't it time you started thinking about real life?" Margaret interrupted. "Marriage and family. At your age, you don't have much time left." Olivia took a deep breath. "Actually, I have something to tell you." On a Saturday morning, with spring sunlight brightly illuminating their Manhattan apartment, Olivia and Jason sat with their wedding preparation list. 3 months had passed since their engagement announcement, and only 2 weeks remained until the wedding. "Catering confirmed, flowers decided, just the final guest list," Olivia said, checking items off with a pen. Jason placed his hand on her shoulder. "Any response from your family?" Olivia let out a small sigh. When she announced her engagement, Margaret and Amy's reactions were as expected. "You're marrying that man?" "There are men with better prospects," her mother had said. And Amy had remarked sarcastically, "Just like you, sis, always choosing the ordinary." Robert hadn't expressed an opinion but clearly sided with his wife. "Not yet, but Mom said yesterday she'd think about it." Jason took her hand. "It's okay. We have my family, and most importantly, we have each other." Olivia smiled. Jason's parents were warm and had genuinely celebrated their son's engagement. They had accepted Olivia as a family member from the first time they met. "There's one thing I'm concerned about," Olivia said quietly. "My grandmother, Eleanor." Eleanor Griffin was Margaret's mother, with whom Olivia had shared a special bond since childhood. Whenever she disagreed with Margaret, she would always run to her grandmother's house, and Eleanor would welcome her warmly. "I haven't been allowed to see her since she was diagnosed with severe dementia 10 years ago. According to Mom, she's in a special nursing facility where outings are impossible and visits are prohibited because meeting strangers causes her to panic." "But you want to invite her to the wedding?" Jason understood her feelings. "Of course, but Mom adamantly refuses to allow it. No matter how many times I ask, she keeps saying it's impossible." Olivia stood up and took an old album from the shelf. It showed teenage Olivia smiling with an elegant, white-haired woman. Eleanor had lived in a spacious old mansion in the suburbs of Boston, managing it alone since her husband's death. She was cultured, loved the arts, and knew how to enjoy life. "Grandmother was someone special to me. She was the only one who recognized my worth. She always told me, 'Olivia, follow your heart.'" Jason looked at the album photos and said, "She seems like a wonderful person." The phone rang, and Olivia picked up the receiver. "Hello, Olivia, I'm sorry, but I can't make it to the wedding meeting next week," Margaret's voice came through. Something urgent came up. Olivia tried to hide her distress. "What kind of urgent matter?" "Amy got promoted. We need to celebrate. Besides, haven't you done enough wedding preparation already?" After hanging up, Olivia sank into the sofa. Mom won't help with the wedding preparations. Jason sat next to her and put his arm around her shoulders. You have Sarah, and my mother would be happy to help too. That night, Olivia's smartphone rang. It was a message from Rachel, a former colleague from the publishing house. Olivia, you might not believe this, but I happened to see your mother and sister in Paris. They were relaxing at a cafe near the Eiffel Tower. I took a photo, so I'm sending it to you. The attached photo clearly showed Margaret and Amy toasting with champagne glasses at a Paris cafe, smiling. Olivia's hands trembled. Jason, she showed him the photo. Anger flashed across Jason's face. They're in Europe now, but on the phone, she said something urgent. Olivia instinctively picked up her mobile phone and dialed Margaret's number. After a long ring, she finally heard her mother's voice. Olivia, it's the middle of the night. What do you want? Margaret's voice was irritated. Mom, where are you? Olivia's voice was calm. After a moment of silence, Margaret answered, Paris. We're on a European trip to celebrate Amy's promotion. And my wedding? Oh, didn't you know? We're planning to return after the wedding. This was the only time Amy could take a vacation. Olivia was speechless. Margaret had confessed without any guilt that she would not be attending the most important day in her eldest daughter's life. Let me talk. Amy's voice was heard in the background, and soon she was on the phone. Sis, why are you making such a fuss? Why should we waste time on a marriage that will probably end in divorce soon anyway? Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. Her heart froze at these cold words from her own sister. Fine, enjoy your trip, she said and hung up. Jason held her tightly. I'm sorry, Olivia. It's okay, she said quietly. Actually, I expected this. That's why I chose my own life. However, late that night, Olivia cried quietly alone in bed. Her family's betrayal, although expected, left a deep wound in her heart. And her thoughts turned to her grandmother Eleanor, whom she had not been allowed to see for 10 years. Grandma, if only you were here now. Suddenly, a thought occurred to her. Now that Margaret was in Europe, wasn't this a chance to visit Eleanor? Margaret had always refused to reveal the name or location of Eleanor's special care facility, citing the reason to avoid stimulation. But her friend Lisa, who is a lawyer, might know a way. Olivia jumped out of bed, determined to contact Lisa tomorrow. Could she visit Eleanor and invite her to the wedding? It might be a reckless idea, but right now, she needed the hope of reuniting with her grandmother. Grandma, I will come see you, Olivia whispered to the starry sky outside the window. And I'll tell you everything that's happened during these 10 years we couldn't meet. On the morning of the wedding day, sunlight streamed through the window of Olivia's Manhattan apartment, filtering between the high-rise buildings. The wedding dress hung on the door, its white fabric gleaming in the morning light. Olivia sat on the bed, staring at the mobile phone in her hand. There had been no contact from her family. Jason had stayed at the Brooklyn hotel where the wedding would take place since the previous evening, saying, "It's unlucky to see the bride before the wedding," as he wanted to honor tradition. An hour later, her best friend and maid of honor, Sarah, arrived. "Good morning, bride. The day has finally come," Sarah said brightly, entering with a large makeup bag. "Thank you for coming," Olivia smiled, but her eyes looked a little sad. Sarah noticed her friend's expression and sat down beside her. "Thinking about your family?" Olivia nodded. "I never thought I'd be walking down the aisle alone." "You're not alone. Jason's father said he'd be happy to walk with you, remember?" "Yes," Olivia smiled. Jason's father, Thomas, was a kind man who quickly treated Olivia like a daughter. "But I still wish I could have seen Grandma Eleanor last week." With the help of her lawyer friend Lisa, Olivia had tried to locate Eleanor. However, Margaret had become Eleanor's legal guardian, making it difficult to obtain information about the facility. It'll work out, Sarah said. When Olivia's phone rang, it was from an unknown number. Hello, is this Miss Martin? Miss Olivia Martin? A gentle female voice came through. Yes, it is. This is Nancy Johnson from Riverside Care Center. I'm calling about your grandmother, Eleanor Griffin. Olivia's heart leaped. My grandmother? Is something wrong? No, your grandmother is fine. It's just that she's been insisting on going out this morning. She says she wants to attend my granddaughter's wedding. Olivia was speechless. Sarah looked at her with concern. But according to our records, there's no mention of your wedding today, and we've been instructed by Miss Margaret Martin not to allow any outings that might confuse Eleanor. Olivia took a deep breath. Where is the facility located? In Manhattan's Upper West Side, West 79th Street. Olivia noted the address and promised to come right away. After hanging up, she explained the situation to Sarah. You're going now? The wedding is at 4 o'clock. Sarah was surprised. I have to go. I haven't been able to see my grandmother for 10 years. This might be my last chance. Sarah sighed but smiled. All right, I'll come with you. They canceled their appointment with the makeup artist and jumped into a taxi. Olivia's heart was pounding. For 10 years, Margaret had insisted that Eleanor had severe dementia and that outings and visits were impossible. But judging from the nurse's words, Eleanor seemed to have enough awareness to remember her granddaughter's wedding and request an outing. Riverside Care Center was in a quiet location overlooking the Hudson River. It looked more like a luxury retirement home than a special nursing facility. When Olivia and Sarah gave their names at the reception, a staff member appeared with a slightly weary expression. Miss Martin, you're not on Eleanor's visitor list. I am her granddaughter. I haven't seen her for 10 years, but today is my wedding day. Please let me see her. Olivia's voice trembled but was full of determination. Please wait a moment. The woman left her seat and began consulting with someone who appeared to be her superior. I hope this works, Sarah squeezed Olivia's hand. After a while, a middle-aged man approached them. Miss Martin, I'm David Clark, the manager of this facility. I understand the situation. Actually, Eleanor is one of our most active and healthy residents. She has mild dementia, but it doesn't interfere with her daily life, and she lives quite independently. Olivia was confused. But my mother said my grandmother had severe dementia and couldn't go out or have visitors. David made a difficult expression. We were instructed by Miss Margaret to avoid causing confusion to Eleanor by limiting visitors and outings. However, according to the doctor's diagnosis, Eleanor can go out with appropriate accompaniment. Anger welled up in Olivia. Margaret had been lying for 10 years. Please let me see my grandmother, she said quietly. David guided her to an elevator and took her to a bright lounge on the 3rd floor. When the white-haired woman sitting in a chair by the window turned around, Olivia couldn't hold back her tears. Eleanor! Grandma! Eleanor's face was etched with fine wrinkles, but her blue eyes were as sharp and intelligent as they had been 10 years ago. When she saw Olivia, she slowly stood up. Olivia, is it really you? Eleanor's voice had weakened slightly, but her expression was filled with joy. They embraced and remained that way for a long time. Olivia's tears fell on Eleanor's shoulder. Why didn't you come to see me until now? Eleanor asked quietly. Olivia explained the circumstances, how Margaret had consistently claimed that Eleanor had severe dementia and could not go out or have visitors, and how she wasn't even told the location of the facility. Sadness appeared in Eleanor's eyes. She falsified my condition to gain control of my assets. When I was diagnosed with dementia, there was indeed a period when I was temporarily confused, but it was never that severe. Yet Margaret declared me incapable of judgment and began managing my property. Olivia was shocked. That's terrible. Margaret and Amy have been living a luxurious life using my retirement funds. I know they stopped visiting me so they could go on European trips. Sarah entered the room with David. Olivia, we don't have much time. It's already noon. Olivia held Eleanor's hand. Grandma, I'm getting married today. I want you to come with me. Eleanor's face brightened. Of course I'll come. But since Margaret hasn't given permission. David cleared his throat. Actually, according to the doctor's judgment, Eleanor can go out temporarily as long as she has proper accompaniment. There's no legal issue. I'll take full responsibility, Olivia said firmly. Hours later, with Sarah's arrangements, a hairstylist had done Eleanor's hair and makeup, and dressed in an elegant dress that Olivia had prepared in advance, she looked years younger. Arriving at the hotel and getting ready, Olivia made a decision. She took out her smartphone and took a picture with Eleanor. Olivia in her wedding dress and Eleanor in her elegant attire, sitting in the mother of the bride's seat, both smiling happily. Olivia sent that photo to Margaret and Amy. The attached message was simple, with my real family. Immediately, calls from Margaret began ringing, once, twice, 3 times. Olivia turned off her smartphone and smiled at Eleanor. Let's go, Grandma. Will you walk down the aisle with me? Eleanor nodded, tears flowing. It would be my honor, Olivia. As the wedding march began to play, Olivia took Eleanor's arm. Surrounded by the warm smiles of friends gathered at the venue, they slowly began walking down the aisle. At the altar, Jason waited for her with loving eyes. This is real family, Olivia thought to herself. A family bound by love and respect. Wedding bells rang out, and the garden of the small Brooklyn hotel was filled with blessings as Olivia and Jason exchanged a kiss. Applause erupted from the gathered people. They walked hand in hand, smiling at the attendees. Eleanor wiped away tears in the front row. At the reception, Eleanor became the center of attention. Everyone was captivated by her elegance, intelligence, and sharp wit and insight. Colleagues from the publishing house eagerly discussed literature with Eleanor, and Jason's parents warmly welcomed her into the family circle. Your grandmother is a wonderful person, Jason's mother Helen whispered to Olivia. There's no sign of dementia anywhere. Olivia smiled. She does have mild dementia, but nothing like what Mom claimed. It was a lie to make people think Grandma couldn't manage her own assets. Helen frowned. That's terrible. I'm considering legal action, Olivia answered quietly. But today, I just want to feel happy. On the dance floor, Jason gently guided Eleanor, and they danced gracefully to a quiet melody. Watching the scene, Olivia felt her heart fill. At this moment, she was surrounded by family in the truest sense. The day after the wedding, Olivia and Jason took Eleanor back to Riverside Care Center. Before leaving, Eleanor gripped her granddaughter's hand tightly. You'll come back, won't you? There was anxiety in her eyes. Of course, Grandma. I'll never leave you again, Olivia promised. When they returned to their apartment, Olivia's cell phone had been ringing continuously. She exchanged glances with Jason, took a deep breath, and answered. Olivia, what is the meaning of this? Margaret's angry voice resonated. Of what, Mom? Olivia replied calmly. You took Mother out of the facility without permission. She's a dementia patient. Do you realize how dangerous that is? Grandma enjoyed the wedding. She conversed with many people and even danced. That's it. It might be a temporary improvement. Dementia has such moments. Margaret's voice wavered slightly. Come to our apartment in 3 hours. We need to talk, Olivia said and hung up. Afterward, Olivia contacted Lisa for legal advice. She wanted to be prepared before Margaret arrived. Just after noon, the doorbell of the Manhattan apartment rang. Margaret and Amy stood there, both looked tired, still suffering from jet lag. Come in, Olivia guided them to the living room. Jason was in the kitchen, but after greeting them, he said, you should talk alone, and went out. First, I want an explanation, Margaret began as soon as she sat down. Why did you take Mother out without permission? Olivia answered calmly, Grandma has mild dementia, but it's not as severe as you claimed. Why didn't you let me see her for 10 years? It was for Mother's sake. The doctor said it was important not to stimulate her. Really? Olivia placed documents on the table. Here's the medical diagnosis from Riverside Care Center. It clearly states that Grandma can go out with appropriate accompaniment and that family interaction is beneficial for maintaining cognitive function. Margaret stumbled for words, and Amy looked anxiously at her mother. That's not all, is it? Olivia continued. I heard from Grandma you falsified her condition to gain control of her assets. The color drained from Margaret's face. Let's not stop lying, Olivia's voice trembled but was full of strong will. Lisa investigated for me. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been withdrawn from Grandma's assets over the past 10 years. Where did that money go? After a long silence, Margaret's shoulders slumped. All right, her voice became small. At first, I really thought it was for Mother's sake. She was temporarily confused, and I thought it would be safer if I managed her assets. But as time passed, you used it for your and Amy's luxurious lifestyle, Olivia said coldly. We have rights too. Amy suddenly raised her voice. Grandma's money belongs to the family. She can't possibly use it all anyway. Olivia looked at Amy with stern eyes. That's a thief's excuse. What do you intend to do? Margaret asked, looking tired. I've consulted with a lawyer. I plan to start legal proceedings to transfer Grandma's asset management rights to me and to investigate the misused funds. Margaret and Amy looked at each other. Fear flickered in their eyes. If you do that, we'll go bankrupt. Amy cried out. Our life until now. You have options, Olivia said calmly. First, I proceed with legal action as I just mentioned. Second, Mom voluntarily relinquishes control of Grandma's assets and plans to repay the money used. Margaret was silent for a long time but eventually said in a small voice, I choose the second option. The conversation moved to negotiating specific conditions and discussing Eleanor's future life. Margaret initially insisted on taking Eleanor into her own home, but Olivia refused. Grandma will live near my husband and me. I plan to find a small house where we can spend weekends together. Of course, Mom and Amy are welcome to visit. When the conversation concluded, Margaret stood up, looking tired. I'll go now. At the door, she turned back. Olivia, I'm not as cold-hearted as you think. I just made the wrong choices. I know, Mom, Olivia replied quietly. But it will take time to rebuild trust. After Margaret and Amy left, Olivia sank into the sofa and heaved a deep sigh. Jason returned and sat next to her. Are you okay? He asked gently. Olivia rested her head on his shoulder. I'm fine now. Grandma can be free, and we can create a real family. On Christmas morning, a year after the wedding, Olivia was looking out the window of her new home in the New York suburbs at the snow accumulated in the garden. She and Jason had purchased a house in this quiet residential area 6 months ago and moved from Brooklyn. A small cottage where Eleanor lived was a 5-minute walk from their house. Coffee? Jason offered a mug. His warm smile made Olivia feel fulfilled. Thank you. Is Grandma still sleeping? No, she's already up decorating the Christmas tree. She said she wants to finish it before breakfast. Olivia smiled. Eleanor had become remarkably energetic over the past year. Her assets were properly managed, and the balance between appropriate independence and family support had a positive effect on her health. The doctor said her dementia's progression had stopped. Daily walks with Jason, reading sessions with Olivia, and volunteering at the local senior center twice a week gave her a sense of purpose. It's going to be lively today, Olivia said. Yes, my parents are looking forward to it too. Jason's parents had been staying at a hotel since yesterday. On the table was an unopened letter from Margaret. She and Amy had also been invited to dinner today. Rebuilding the relationship hadn't been easy. Margaret and Robert had divorced, and Margaret, who had been ordered by the court to return the money she had misappropriated from Eleanor's assets, could no longer live the luxurious life she once had. Amy, too, had lost her job as manager at the upscale boutique and had taken a more modest position. As Olivia had worried, the repayment plan had significantly changed their lives, but it had also become an opportunity to learn humility. A few months ago, Margaret had acknowledged her mistakes for the first time and apologized to Olivia and Eleanor. "You still can't forgive your mother?" Jason asked gently. Olivia thought deeply. The word forgive is easy, but rebuilding trust takes time. But at least today is Christmas. It might be a chance for a new beginning. Eleanor peeked her face out from the living room. "Would you two help me with the decorations?" Olivia and Jason stood up, smiling. As the three of them decorated the tree together, Olivia was enveloped in a feeling of gratitude. Life wasn't perfect, but she was now surrounded by true family. In the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Margaret and Amy stood there. Neither was dressed in the flashy clothes they once wore, but in simple, subdued outfits. Margaret held a small present in her hand. "Merry Christmas," she said, looking a bit nervous. "Merry Christmas, Mom," Olivia smiled and invited them in. "Come in, everyone's waiting." In the living room, Eleanor sat on the sofa talking with Jason's parents. When she saw Margaret and Amy, there was a moment of tension, but Eleanor smiled gently. "I'm glad you came." The time around the dinner table was initially awkward, but gradually conversation began to flow. Margaret and Amy began to smile at Eleanor's witty stories. "True family isn't just about blood ties, but about respecting and supporting each other," Eleanor said, raising her wine glass. "Here's to everyone here today." Olivia clasped Jason's hand as she quietly clinked glasses. Her other hand rested on her slightly swollen belly. She hadn't told anyone yet about the new life growing inside her. She planned to announce it tonight at this family gathering. To new beginnings, Olivia thought to herself, and to the bonds of true family.